This week, Facebook said millions of user passwords were left exposed to its employees for years. The passwords were stored in a readable format within Facebook's internal systems and could be accessed by about 20,000 staff members. Now, the problem goes back as far as 2012. The social media giant says the data was not visible to anyone outside the company, and there's no evidence it was ever misused. Facebook is promising to notify the affected users. The social media company has had its share of privacy issues in the last couple of years. So for more on this and to break down the big tech stories of the week, we have Jen Evans, and she is president of B2B News Network and co-founder of Squeeze CMM. Hello to you.
Hi, Aarti.
And also we've got Dorothy Ang, and she's the director of partnerships with Code for Canada. Hello, Dorothy.
Hello.
All right, so why don't we talk about what we were actually just touching on right before we came back from break. 2012 is when this issue has existed since, and it was caught during a routine security review that it's as many as 600 million passwords were stored in plain text.
Yeah.
How thorough are these security reviews that are being conducted if ever since 2012 this has been an issue and it hasn't been detected until January?
Well, I think you just answered your own question, Aarti. I mean, plain text is Internet 101. It's just crazy that that many passwords have been stored in that format for that long and had that much exposure to that many employees. And, you know, if this had been the first incident of Facebook having privacy issues, that would be one thing, but it is far from the first. It's the latest in a long sequence of them. And it really begs the question, what on earth is happening over there?
And to that point, you sort of touched on it, and Dorothy, maybe I'll ask you, this is just the latest issue we've seen with privacy and Facebook. What does the social media platform company need to be doing to stop these sorts of infractions from happening? Is it just not taking this seriously, not taking any of these issues seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fact that Facebook knew that they hadn't encrypted their passwords, and yet they chose to keep it that way for so long is really concerning, and it speaks to this like larger issue at not just Facebook, but I think a lot of tech companies that a lack of care and respect for their users' data. And so actually at Code for Canada, we work on building the digital capacity of governments, but also the civic capacity of the tech sector more broadly. And so really what that means is encouraging tech companies to build technology in a more responsible way for the common good. And this example is just an example of a tech company like Facebook that is lacking civic capacity and lacking respect for its users' data.
And given that it's Facebook and it's the largest platform of its kind in the world, it really starts, and because the incidents have been repeated, it really starts to beg the question: when is a regulatory body going to step in?
And that is part of the question, because we certainly know that it is such a Goliath, so many users on this platform itself, and despite all of these sort of security infractions we've seen in the past few years, recently Cambridge Analytica, that was huge, 2018, we haven't seen a huge decline in the number of people using it. Yes, there's immediate backlash, but then after that, people are logging right back in, perhaps using passwords that were in plain text. So do you think, Jen, maybe I'll go back to you on this, will it really have an impact now that we're seeing another 600 million users' passwords were being stored in plain text? Does it matter to anybody?
I think there's a cumulative effect, and it isn't really just the past few years. It goes right back to the very early days of Facebook when they were sharing user information in Beacon and in the news feed without users' permissions as far back as 10 years ago. So there's a recurring and repeating pattern of this, and the numbers are actually down. I think the last stat that I saw, they were down 15 million users in the US. And yes, okay, in the grand scheme of things, 15 million users is not a huge number, but it is in their core territory. And if that starts to filter out, they're going to have a problem.
And Dorothy, I wanted to ask you, because we know that Facebook has said that they don't believe that the passwords were misused by these tens of thousands of employees who saw them, but they say that they're going to be in contact with the users who were impacted by this. Whether you get contacted by Facebook or not, should you just change your password?
Yeah, I mean, I think on an individual level, there are things that people can do to protect themselves from these scenarios. There's like password managers out there that you can sign up for that give unique and very complex passwords for each of your accounts that you have. I think those are good, steps to take as an individual.
But can I ask, like, even if Facebook can't keep your passwords secure, and they're the biggest company of this kind in the world, you kind of wonder if these password solutions are going to be able to do the same.
Totally,
kind of
yeah. And so I think it actually speaks to, we're seeing that more and more governments across the world, especially in Europe, are open to regulating tech giants. And so it would be very interesting and reasonable to think that the Canadian government would also push back on these tech giants as well, and reasonable to also expect like some kind of regulatory framework around how these tech giants are managing people's data and very sensitive data like
exactly.
passwords.
And if privacy were the only issue, that would be one thing. But we also know that there's a whole other host of issues Facebook is confronting, from content to the way that its platform is being used and the data, and it all starts to become a very concerning picture of how the platform is being used.
Now, on the point of content, I want to move along to our next topic. Now, we know that also the social media giant says they're now re-examining how they react to live streaming, that video feature that they offer, and that was following the New Zealand attacks. And the intelligence tools were essentially meant to be used to stop content like that, which was deemed objectionable within the country itself. Where do we start the discussion on that? Dorothy, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, relying on AI as the sole tool for catching this kind of content is inherently flawed. Like, we know that AI has problems, like, for example, biases by the people who create those algorithms and other factors. And so, solely relying on a tool that has biases baked into them to catch this kind of content is, it's not very responsible or.
Agreed, 100%. And this is not really a technology problem per se. I think part of the issue is that the founders do believe, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, that technology is going to solve the problem, when moderation is really the issue. And if you've seen the recent article in Wired, that human moderation is coming at an enormous cost. It's something that we have to invest in. There has to be better escalation processes. And this is not the first time Facebook has dealt with this either. There's been incidents, over the past 3 years, really since Facebook Live became a thing. And again and again, we're saying same patterns as we are on privacy. The issues just are not being dealt with.
Here's the question, though. Is it sort of a reflection of the users that are streaming this sort of content? Or should the onus be on the platform itself, the people who are sharing? I believe it was 1.5 million times this video was shared. Should we be cracking down more on those individuals or the platform itself? Where does the responsibility lie? Dorothy?
I mean, I think it's both. I think that, there are some ways of encouraging people to be more responsible citizens, whether it's through like social policies or civic engagement, that could help to get at the root of some of these issues. On the other side, Facebook is in the business of running this social media platform, and they make billions of dollars every year. And so part of their business should be to moderate this content and ensure that whatever is being pushed by its users is regulated or overseen in some kind of way.
And I just have 20 seconds left for one last word to you, Jen. I wanted to ask, should we have live streaming on Facebook?
I think it's not the live streaming that's the issue. The issue is identity. And the reality is that on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, and not on LinkedIn, where the problems are much less severe in this area, you have to be able to you don't have to prove who you are. And the content that comes with anonymity, as we now know, can have a lot of edge to it. So there's a movement now afoot to say that if you're going to have an account on a platform and stream this kind of content, your identity needs to be verified.
Well, thank you both for a very interesting and important discussion. That is all the time we have. Jen Evans joined us today. She's the president of B2B News Network and co-founder of Squeeze CMM. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
And Dorothy Ng is director of partnerships with Code for Canada. Thank you for joining us, Dorothy.
Thank you.